What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Emerald Grappling Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Murphy, and today I've travelled up north. I am in Strabane. See, I got it right. I'm delighted. And I'm joined by Lisa Houston. She is a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She's the female coach here in SBG Strabane, which you can see behind. Her coach is sitting in the corner judging us. And yes, I'm really looking forward to this. For anyone who doesn't know Lisa, you may have seen her on the competition mats. She's competed at the IBJJF Worlds, Europeans, ADCC trials, and a few invitational shows, such as Grapple Kings, Grapple Queens, and ADCC Scotland. Lisa, thank you for coming on the podcast.
No problem at all. I'm glad you came up, and it's a privilege to be asked to be on here, so I'm excited.
No, I'm really looking forward to this. I know when I sent you the message first, you were like, why are you asking me, to be honest?
Yeah.
But I always say the reason I asked anyone to come on this podcast is I've met them at competitions. I've followed them online. I know they have a cool story. Everyone has a story.
Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to hearing yours.
Good job. Looking forward to it.
Perfect. So for anyone who doesn't know you, maybe you can tell us about yourself and how you got started in Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah. It's a funny story, actually, how I got started in Jiu-Jitsu because, well, prior to Jiu-Jitsu, I did pole dancing, and I actually certified in pole dancing and stuff, went and got my certification. I actually wanted to start a business here in Strabane for it, and it just never followed through. And it started coming on to the winter time of 2018, I think it was. And I would get seasonal depression where I'm just like, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything. I'm just in a rut. And I remember my friends being like, Lisa, you need to get a hobby again, because I'd faded away from, the pole dancing. So they were like, you need to do something. Like, you're not good sitting in your own head all the time. So me and my husband, we were just sitting on the sofa one night watching TV, and I was scrolling on Facebook, as you do, and I seen this Facebook post, and I turned to Daniel and I was like, what's NoGi? And he was like, what? And I was like, what's NoGi Jiu-Jitsu? And he was like, it's NoGi. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, what is it? And he was like, it's like Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and like wrestling and body locks or arm locks, whatever. I was like, I think I'll do that. And then in the January time, the end of January, I just started, and I've literally a mat rat, never left since. I just got addicted to it straight away. I have a very addictive personality. Anybody that knows me, I have such an addictive personality. So as soon as I put myself into something, I do it and do it to the best that I can. The same with the pole dancing. Like, I went and got certified in order to be able to teach it. Like, I did the best that I could in that, and I hope to do the same in Jiu-Jitsu as my goal to, do really well.
Nice. I've never heard anyone call it NoGi before.
I know. That's how much I didn't know about it. I was like, I've never even heard of it before that. Like, my husband would watch the UFC and stuff, so he would have a fair idea of what MMA and Jiu-Jitsu is. And I was just like, what the heck's NoGi? I don't know what that means. And he was like, NoGi.
So you had no competitive or combat experience prior to this?
No. I had competitive, like, I would have played Gaelic and when I was younger, and the pole dancing, I competed in that a bit as well. I am a competitive person. I make everything into a competition. But no, I had no real competitive background or any combat or mixed martial arts background at all.
Okay, and what was your first experience when you came in doing it? Because I know most people, when they do it first, it's either they fall in love with it or they're like, what am I doing right now?
No, I definitely fell in love with it. The first night I came in, I think I remember asking, was there girls there? And they were like, no, but there is one other. Like, again, because it was January time, everybody knew year, knew me. Everybody's trying to get into something. So there was another girl coming the same night that I was going to start. So I was like, oh, perfect. That's great. I'll be able to partner with her. And she lasted the one night, never came back. And I was just by myself then in terms of like being a girl. But the first night I was there, I just remember thinking, what the hell is going on? Do you know when you get into that position and like, even in roles towards the end, and they're like, right, start to pass guard, and you're like, what's that even mean? I don't even know what to do. And like, I can't remember if it was Gareth said to me or I made up my own analogy, was like, you get one piece of the jigsaw, and then every night you come, you get another piece of the jigsaw, and it suddenly goes together, and then eventually it starts growing, and the jigsaw is never ending really at this point, I've learned. But you do learn a bit every night, and they slowly start linking together, and you understand it a wee bit more. But I was just obsessed with it straight away. I wanted to be the best, and that was part of my downfall. And in my progression was like, I need to know everything now or yesterday. Do you know?
That constant pursuit of the knowledge.
Yep, 100%.
And did you find, as you were saying, it was just yourself and another woman that was in the class? I I don't know, a lot of people find this like kind of intimidating to going into an all-male class. Did you find it like that?
No, I was fine, to be honest. I just knew I wanted to be there for me, so I didn't really care what everybody else was doing. I didn't know anybody in the class. Like, I never seen them around or anything, so I didn't really care. I'm not the kind of person that cares what others think of me to an extent. So I was happy enough and just stuck it out, and everybody was great. Like, everybody's so good, and the gym is, I think that's part of the conversation I try and get across to a lot of girls is people think, oh, these men are like big men and they're going to hurt you and all. And like, everybody's so soft in jiu-jitsu. Like, everyone is really, really nice and really, really supportive, and they'll do their best for you. So, like, I would encourage people to join, even if they are intimidated. Even men can be intimidated by it as well. And, you know, everybody's supportive, and it's nice to have that in a gym.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know when I first started, I was in the Leitrim club at the time, and in the first class, first person I rolled with was like this 15-year-old kid who was a fraction of my size, and in my head I was thinking, this is going to be so easy. Oh, I was so wrong. I got Kimura'd, I'd say 15 times in the first like 5 minutes, and then I remember just driving home thinking, if someone that size can do that to me, what am I going to be like after maybe a year of training?
100%.
And how many years are you training now in total?
Well, that was 2019 I started.
So
I can't do math.
6 years. 6 years, kind of the same as myself. And since then, you have become the first female blue belt and purple belt in the gym. So what was that experience like?
It was great. Like, I remember crying after getting my blue belt. I just loved the feeling of it, you know, because I'm such a perfectionist and I wanted to learn so fast. Like, when I started, as it says, it was 2019. 2020 we went into lockdown, so I missed a lot of time that I could have used to progress, and that kind of annoyed me. I actually went during that time and done a sports psychology course online through Open University, because I was like, well, if I can't do the physical side of it, maybe I can try and help the mental side when we're not able to do anything else. But becoming the first female blue belt, it's an honor, you know, I know it's not history, but it's my history for me, and my journey is to be that person and be that, not an icon, but someone to look up to in our gym. Is like, I find it a privilege, to be honest, and I love being that person for other people. And
what did you find the step between blue and purple? Did you find that easier or harder going from white to blue?
I think it was harder because as soon as I got my purple belt, I actually suffer with endometriosis, and I was scheduled to have major surgery. And I got my purple belt on the 18th of June, I think it was, something along those lines. And then my surgery was on the 25th of June. So I had major surgery, and I was out for 8 weeks recovering from that, and I wasn't able to train. So I was just like, I just got my purple belt, and I want to prove stuff, you know, prove myself as a purple belt.
Yeah.
And now I can't train for 8 to 10 weeks. And, you know, even after that, I had a slowly, because it was stomach surgery or women's surgery, like, I had to ease back into it. I couldn't have knee on belly. I can't, you know, roll hard. You know, I was end up drilling really softly to begin with. So it was a long process. And it was a hard process because I just love being here. And as soon as I could be here, I was here watching, if not, you know, taking part. So moving to purple was difficult in that aspect. And then competition wise was extremely different, because anybody that knows me, back when I was a blue belt and a white belt, like, I don't know if you know this, but when I was a white belt, as I said, I started the end of January in 2019. I did my first gi competition in the January 2020, where I went to the Gi Europeans in Portugal. It was my first gi competition.
Damn.
I know.
Didn't ease yourself in.
I know. Gareth booked to go, and like, I had my first NoGi competition 8 months in. I think it was November time, and I just had one girl in my bracket, and I lost in armbar. And then he had booked to go to Portugal in the January time, and this was probably November time. And I remember thinking, I wonder, could I do that? You know, when you're so naive as a white belt, I didn't really know how big of a thing it was. And then I hemmed and had, and I was like, I don't know what to do, I don't know. And literally the day before the registration closed, I rang him and I was like, can I go to Portugal? And he was like, of course you can, if you want. Like, if that's what you want to do it. Like, I wouldn't stop you. And I was like, right, I'll go. And then I got there, and again, I lost my first round in armbar. And then, like, as time went on and as I grew as a competitor, I was like, I'm not white. I'm not white. Like, who would do that? Literally not even a year into my jiu-jitsu journey and I'm at the Europeans competing as a white belt. Like, I just think on the flip side of that, I think it's the best thing I could have done because I went so big to begin with that, like, not that nothing phases me, but it makes it a lot easier to compete in an aspect. Do you know, that kind of way? I would encourage everybody to compete. I don't care what level it is. You know, people may look at me and be like, why is she going to do the Worlds? Why is she doing that? I mean, you have to be on it to win it. You're always going to have good days and bad days. Now, I have bad days more than good, but that's a different story.
But no, that's actually crazy. Like, going from just training straight into Europeans. Like, go hard or go home.
I know.
Really. But no, that's admirable because I know my first competition was one of the grassroots ones. And of course, I lost that because you're not expecting your first competition to come out with gold medals. Like, it's all an experience.
100%.
So at least you were able to take that, because usually a lot of people, when they do their first competition, it's sink or swim. They'll either come back, keep going, that fire's lit under them, or they're like, no, I'm never doing this again. So it's good to see that you kept going.
Yeah, 100%. Keep coming back for more, no matter what the result is like.
But that's a good mindset to have, because it
100%.
pushes you to keep improving every time. And even if it's just 1% every day, like, it all compounds. Yeah.
I eventually learned to keep a competition journal then, because there was a time where I was just get so annoyed that I was losing and I wasn't really thinking about anything else. And part of that sports psychology course I'd done for myself, you know, it was a very low grade sports psychology course, but I mean, it gave me the basics, and a lot of what I was doing was focusing on the outcome. I was never looking at performance goals. And even in my work, like, I work in that environment where there's performance goals, there's, like, you know, outcome based goals, and I started looking at performance goals rather than the outcome. So I was coming back from competitions, writing whatever the outcome was at the top, doing my opportunities and my strengths. So I would watch the match back and I would write down all the things I did good and some of the things that I had opportunities on. And it shocked me because most times I did more things good than I did you know, things I need to work on in terms of opportunities. And sometimes that's what it is with me, is like, I just make a stupid mistake, or I make a couple of stupid mistakes that leads to the end of the match. But I was failing to recognize the other good things. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to do, because you do focus on the negative side of it. But you have to give yourself credit where credit's due.
Absolutely. And it's, I suppose, especially after a competition, a lot of people would just kind of focus on the negatives and they're like, oh, I messed up here and there. But then when you review the footage, or even sit down with your coach and review it, they're going to be like, yeah, you did this right, but you just made a small error there. But
I would never listen to that. I have to recognize it myself. I would never listen to it. I'd be like, oh, it was shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but
yeah, curse away.
I was like, you know, it's just shit. It was so bad. And he's like, oh, well, you did this good, and this was really nice transition, and you switched from this to this, and that was good. And I'm like, shit, though, I lost.
And then when you went for your next competition, was it like just one of the national style ones here in Ireland, or did you go for another major?
No, it was local. I think it was in Belfast. I think I won one match and lost two. I didn't actually have because obviously then COVID happened, so I had a long period of time out, and then my first one back was the Gamma one. But I'm 50 kilo and the girl was maybe 63, 64. And I still talk to her to this day. She's a nice girl, and I just got completely smashed in it. So it was hard to come back and go into that, you know, loss column straight away. But I mean, you do have to take a step back. I do give myself 24 hours after the competition to huff and puff and cry and do whatever, and then after that I'm back in the gym.
Oh,
you know, you have to be.
No, absolutely. And then you compound on those little errors, and then you start to improve.
Yeah, 100%.
And actually, one thing I do really like about your social media, because I had to do a deep dive when I was doing research, but you always post your wins and your losses. A lot of people would only post the wins and the photos of where their hand has been raised or the medal, whereas you're very transparent in regards to, you will post about, okay, I lost this match, and you put a nice reflective post about it. Do you find that helps you deal with maybe just say the loss in the competition and then your progression?
100%, definitely. And I find like for me, for all competition I did, I was always comparing myself to other people, always comparing myself at the same level or somebody that was training the same amount of time and what they were doing and, you know, what they were doing good. And I think part of it was focusing on other people and seeing their social media and be like, well, she's doing this, well, she's doing that. Well, like they weren't talking about their losses. So I thought it was an opportunity to, I'm an honest person anyway. I find like I'm very open and transparent, and it makes it easy to have conversations with people. And for me, I didn't have those accounts to look on that talk about their losses or their downfalls and, you know, how it feels, because realistically it's really, really shit. And, you know, it can lead to ruts that I have encountered along the way. And, you know, we need to encourage each other to look after mental health. Like when we are getting losses, like when you have such a passion for the sport, you really do want to do well. And when it doesn't go that way, like people just want to highlight the good of it. And I think others need accounts to look at to understand that it's okay to lose. You know, it's okay to not perform how you wanted. It's okay that, you know, you're a killer in the gym, but you just can't, you're not a competitive athlete, which I sometimes think that's how I am in a way, but I just still push and push and push and see how far I can push myself to eventually get to the competitor that I want to be.
No, I kind of resonate with that, because I always tell everyone, and I'm very open about it as well, I think I've 4 wins and probably 30 losses. And to be honest, it's probably like 20 losses in a row now at the moment, because I'm not really a competitive person. I love training jiu-jitsu. I love testing myself at competitions. So I don't actually post that much on my own social media, but it is so refreshing to see people actually embrace it, rather than just be like, oh yeah, I went out and I won 4 matches, lost 1, and then just focus on what they did to win and all the photos. So
100%. Or the ones that post the participation medals but let on that they've actually won those medals.
Oh, I know a few people like that. And we're not going to name and shame them today.
No, we're not going to name and shame.
But no, even still, like if you get the participation medal, you went onto the mats when other people didn't. So
that's the biggest thing is, you know, a lot of people sit back and judge, and even the people that don't do jiu-jitsu, like my dad's the worst for it. He's like, why didn't you just do this? And I'm like, you don't even know what you're talking about. Like, you don't realise how difficult it is to do the sport, never mind do the sport as a competitor. Like, it's unbelievable.
That's a lot of sacrifice as well you've got to do.
Oh, loads.
And I don't think people really realise how much you do have to put on the line to be, one, doing the sport in general. Because it's not just, oh, we're going to turn up, we'll do a 2-hour class and that's it. You got to do your strength and conditioning with it if you want to stay healthy on the mats.
Yeah.
And then there's the competition side, which is a complete different animal.
Like, I was competing once a month at least in 2023. Like, once a month when I was a blue belt, once a month at least, maybe twice. Just because I wanted to get that experience in consistently all the time. Where I could, I was there.
And what was your recovery like after that? Were you doing like ice baths, saunas?
No, not even. A lot of sleeping.
It's the best recovery.
I love my sleep. I wear a whip band. I don't know if you've heard of them. Not sponsored, no, unfortunately. But I wear a whip band, and it tracks my recovery and my HRV and rest and heart rate and everything as well. So I do try and stick by that. If it tells me I have a bad recovery day, I'll maybe come in and not roll as hard and just do lighter drilling and things like that. But yeah, I do try and look after my recovery as well. I think it's important in what we're doing.
No, absolutely, because you don't want to be injured going on those mats.
Definitely not.
No, and taking time off, as you were saying, even like when you got your purple belt, you had to take those few months off. It's horrible. Anyone who does jiu-jitsu, we're addicted to it. There's no other way of saying it. And taking time off the mat is probably one of the most horrible experiences.
Yeah. I think before that, like I think that was the first time I had a long stint off, but prior to that, in 2020, can't remember actually, I think it was the year before that, 2022 maybe, I fractured my radial head in a competition as well. So I was out then, but even then it was only maybe 8 weeks or so. I didn't need surgery or anything. It was just a small fracture. But I was still in the gym training, drilling, just not with this arm. Doing what I could with what I had, really, is what I would try and strive for. And I would try and encourage others too. Like, if some of my girls are injured or they have a sore arm, I'll say, come in, watch. You still learn from watching. Come in and observe and drill what you can. If you can't do footlocks with this hand, you know, practice what you can do with what you have.
Becoming ambidextrous with your submissions and attacks.
Oh, Gareth scolds me because I make my girls do both sides. Whenever I'm coaching, I'm like, do both sides. And he's like, you don't always need both sides. And I'm like, yes, you do. You always need both sides.
Yeah, sharpen both sides of the sword.
Yep.
doubles up your submissions as well.
That's it. Sometimes if they put you to a side we don't want to be, then you have it. You know, you don't have to worry about, oh shit, I didn't practice this on this side, so now I have to go for something else. You're prepared for it.
No, absolutely. So I just want to tie back to your time as blue belt, purple belt, and now you're the women's coach here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use your experience from your 5-6 years, whatever the math is, we're both bad at it at the moment. Do you use that information to kind of encourage the women's classes to either, you know, participate in the mixed ones and to learn from your mistakes?
Yeah. Well, I think as a coach, I really want to be supportive. I think with Gareth, with me being the first female joining, I think it was difficult for Gareth as a coach because he's never had a female, and we're obviously quite difficult. Women can be, so you're not saying anything there.
Nope, I'm staying quiet.
But yeah, I think it was hard for Gareth to understand how to approach me, and it's the same with guys. You know, we all have our different styles of coping with things, and for me, I do prefer the hand around the shoulder and being like, you know, it's okay, and you know, you can get through it and stuff. But I don't think Gareth was used to that with the guys in our gym, so I think with his coaching style had to change for me, and making sure that I got what I wanted from him in terms of support and encouragement. So I do try and provide the same for the girls in terms of making sure that they understand when they go to compete that it's okay to lose. And again, I think that comes back to my own transparency, is I am open to saying I've lost. Like, I'm not here being like, oh, I'm a superstar, because I'm not, and I don't need people to be a superstar for me to enjoy coaching them. Do you know, that kind of way? I just want them to do as well as they can do and help support them on the way. And I think with mistakes, you know, my mistakes are my own knowledge of jiu-jitsu at the time, so I just try and provide them with as much as I can, you know, to help them. But I do encourage them to compete, at least compete once, to get that experience, because sometimes you don't know if you're going to like it until you actually do it. Do you know what I mean? So and I do try and be there for them when it comes to weight and stuff. Like, we've one of our girls competing in a few weeks, and you know, she's worried about nutrition and food, and I'm like, just relax. You know, I try and provide the information that I have, and if I don't have it, I'll send them into the right place. Like, I had work with Yannick McGee for the last couple of years in terms of making sure my nutrition's right, fueling for performance, rather than, you know, just fueling or eating to keep yourself full, is making sure I'm eating at the right time to get as much out of my training that I need to. So I do try and pass that information on to them as well, as much as I can with the basics that I know. So I do think they enjoy that style, and like, I'm a friend at the end of the day. It's the same with me and Gareth and the other two coaches. Like, I always say we're all like a big family. Like, you don't realize the friends that you have in your gym, and like, I hang around with these girls and guys outside of jiu-jitsu as well. It's not just in here, it's outside of that. They're involved in my personal life, you know. So it's just great to have girls come in and support me and support each other, because I think when I compete and they're there, and when I lose, do you know, it's almost the same thing I'm saying to them. It's like, it's fine, it doesn't matter, we can work on those things, we can get through, we can work on it, and you know, we come back to the gym and then go back to a competition, try it out again. And it's those things that I didn't listen to from my coach that I'm now doing with the girls, and I'm like, I know they're not listening to me because I didn't listen to my coach either. But
and he's nodding in the corner for anyone who doesn't know.
But I know you still need to hear it. You do still need to hear it 100%.
Yeah, everyone, there's like different coaching styles. I find even with the coaches where I am, everyone has their own approach to it. It's not one size fits all.
No, definitely not.
And how do you find your coaching style, or even your first time coaching itself? Was it a challenge?
I don't know if it was a challenge. I do like helping people, and it's always something that I would like to do, and I think it just came naturally even before hosting an official women's class. Like, we started that in May 2022. We would have had some of the girls in the kids class that I would have naturally wanted to help and, you know, encourage. But what was your question again in terms of the style?
Yeah, how would you approach it? Like, do you take elements from Gareth and merge it with some of your own? Or
No, I think I'm very laid back in my approach with coaching. As I say, it's like, I always make them do both sides and drill both sides and do it with different sizes of gears and different lengths of gears. And I don't really know what style of coaching I have, but I do enjoy coaching. I think it's that being able to help, because even the guys, like, I still try and help coach the guys as well in the normal class, and sometimes I'm a better coach than I am competitor. And I think there are those people out there that can see things and know what needs to happen. Whereas when I'm doing it, I'm like, my left hand, I'm like, which is left?
Where's right?
Like, it just doesn't transpire sometimes. It doesn't make sense. Like, jiu-jitsu just doesn't ever make sense sometimes.
No, it doesn't. And I was saying this to you before we started recording, that anytime I've gone to any competition, if I see Gareth, you're not too far behind.
Yeah.
And if I see you, Gareth's not too far behind either. And you have this like really good relationship, like student coach or coach to coach now. And it's very impressive because I've seen you at competitions where Gareth's coaching you, and then after your match, you're running and straight into his corner to coach him.
100%. I think as well, because I have so much passion for the sport and I want to compete so much, when I'm asking him, will he come and coach me? He's like, well, I may as well do too because I'm going to be there. Do you know, that kind of way? So it's almost encouraging each other. And then with the other two coaches, like I call us Gareth and the Three Stooges, because as I said, if Gareth's there, there's bound to be one of us three there without a doubt. And I think it comes down to my work as well. My work sponsored me for my MMA fights as well, and they are so flexible in terms of what I do in the gym and training and stuff. You know, they give me flexible working hours. They just leave and go train and come back and make up hours, and I just think that has helped me so much, especially when it comes to competing, because I do be away quite a lot and I have a lot of annual leave. So it's a blessing to have even the support from my work. It's a mad thing to say because not everybody has that privilege.
Yeah, it's very true. I'm grateful myself. I don't cash in on the annual leave days to do training. I probably should. But back to even just like the relationship you have with your coach, it is something very important for all
100%.
people in the gym to have someone that they can rely on to get this information, and even have them come to you in time and even ask you questions.
Yeah.
Do you find that this has impacted your life on and off the mat?
100%. Like, Gareth always laughs because like I bring him things that I've found that he would never do as a jiu-jitsu athlete, probably because I'm small and flexible, and I'm like, can we do this mad thing that I saw on Instagram? And he's like, I guess and then it ends up working, or it might work for him, or vice versa. And I just think it's great to have that back and forth, because especially after competitions, like I rely on him to help me pinpoint where I went wrong in that match and kind of break down the match and see what our strategy is. And, you know, even off the mat's the same with the nutrition, strength and conditioning. He's like, you need to make sure you're keeping on top of that. And like, as I said, I try and transpire that to my girls as well, in terms of looking after yourself and getting your time on the mats and making sure you're competing. And it does transpire down from coach to coach, to be honest, I think.
No, absolutely. And for anyone who is just maybe joining jiu-jitsu for the first time, and it can be daunting that you don't know this person and they're telling you how to do things. Yeah. What advice would you give them to finding a good coach and building onto this relationship?
I think it's about getting to know them. Like, you can't have a stranger tell you what to do, and you know how to, well, you can, obviously that's what happens as soon as you go in, but I mean, you have to build that relationship and work on it. And I think that's the nice thing about this gym, is we have that opportunity, and you know, we all live close by, so if we need to train, if we have a quick hour, we'll go and train. And I think having that opportunity just makes it that much better. But in terms of building the relationship, you do need to, like, again, because I was the first female, like Gareth had to learn different ways of dealing with me, or like even speaking with me. Like, my style of learning could be different from somebody else's, and I think that's important as a coach to be able to recognize that and, you know, transpire the information in a different way, or maybe say it in a different way, or show it in a different way. And again, people learn by listening, some people learn by visuals, and it's just making sure that whatever that is for you, that coach can support that. And it might not always be the case in the first gym that you go to. Like, you might need to sit down with your coach and say, like, I've had to speak to Gareth and be like, Gareth, I really need support, like, after a competition, or like, I need you to be like, it's okay, we can go back to the gym, we can sort it out, and we can work on it, and, you know, eventually iron it out. But like, I can't be that, I'm not that kind of person that I want everybody to just leave me alone after it. I need that support and encouragement, because I never give it to myself, do you know, that kind of way. And I do need the encouragement from everybody else.
So, in other words, you're saying Gareth has become a big softie.
Aye. He's become a therapist.
Yeah, no, I find a lot of coaches, they will sit down and they will listen. So it's a good skill to have.
Aye. But it's not, as I said, like, it might not be the coach for you, but you can make it work. If your coach is a good coach, they'll be able to respond and adapt to the change and help support you in the way that you need. I think that's what's important, is speaking. Like, as I said, I'm very open and transparent, is do not be shy to sit down with your coach and say, hey, I need this or I need that, or, you know, that's why they're there. They're there for support and guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. Garrett, what do you think? Completes the fit.
But I do think that is, you know, really true in terms of support and guidance. Like, as I said already, the girls, I want to make sure I'm that person for them, because it's different male coach and female student and female coach and female students. Like, we get each other as a female, like, and I just think it's nice to have that relationship and bond with them as well, that I'm their friend. I'm not just a coach that's telling them what to do. Is I have a relationship with them, and I, even outside the mat with them, like, they'll come and speak to me. We talk. They've come to my birthdays. You know, we have a relationship outside of here as well.
And that's very important to have.
Yeah,
You're
100%.
Not just a person in the one room. You're actually a person off the mats too.
Yeah, and I never want anybody to think, oh, she's a senior belt, or like, I know some gyms do have that maybe more professional, structured professor and things like that. I don't want that. I would never want that. I just want people to treat me as I would treat them.
Yeah, that's one thing that's always puzzled me. I've seen it online. Again, not going to name and shame.
Yeah.
But where you can't approach a black belt or a brown belt and ask them to roll, like, I don't understand that. That's
No, I don't get it. I think, I mean, it's intimidating. Not so if your own coach, but if I was to go to another gym, I wouldn't dare to ask a black belt to roll with me. I would wait until they would ask.
Yeah, no, I've had that experience as well, where I've gone somewhere and I see the coach and I'm just like, oh, like, I'm waiting for them to initiate.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to have a roll? And you're kind of like, oh, I don't want to be the one to ask.
100%.
Just even tying back to the female coaching and the classes, do you find that a lot of the women then want to integrate into the mixed classes, or do you find you have to encourage them sometimes?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously that encouragement is there at the start because they're unsure of what'll happen. But I think the blessing here is having me there and having that experience, because when I first joined, like, I even messaged Paige being like, what do I wear and all? Like, what do I bring with me? And I think that's the scary part. The scariest part is getting in the door. Like, once you're here, then you're like, oh, this isn't actually that bad. It's like everything in life, you know, once you eventually go and do it, it's not as daunting. You know, sometimes you have that anxiety in the back of your head, and once you actually face the fear, it's fine. But I think just having the encouragement of somebody else be like, this is what's going to happen. I think as women, we tend to overthink. So we don't really know what to expect, and that unexpectedness can make people uncomfortable. So it's just highlighting what exactly happens in that class, what you're comfortable doing. I try to encourage them, again, if we talked about this before recording, if you don't want to roll with somebody, just say no. It's perfectly fine. Like, no one's going to be annoyed that you said no. And if they are, I don't want them here.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, you have to respect people's choice at the end of the day.
Yeah, and
protect yourself.
That's the main thing. It's all about protecting yourself. It's all fun and games, rolling and that, but if you're rolling with someone that's like 15, maybe 20 kilos heavier, they might know to, like, you know, pull back a little bit, and that is intimidating. Even I find it myself. If I go anywhere and someone bigger asks to roll, I do say no, and I'm not afraid to say no, because I don't want to get
even if
injured.
they are bigger, I would say to the girls, or I would even say to Gareth, sometimes I'm like, what's he like to roll with? You know, get that advice from your coach, because the girls will come to me and be like, oh, I want to roll with him, and if I don't know, I'll be like, ask Gareth, you know, what he's like to roll with, because there are good guys out there that'll roll really well with you, from white belt to black belt, but there are people out there that are a little bit spazzy.
Yeah,
and we were all one of them at one point, so, you know.
Still am. Perfect. And if you were to talk to someone who's not into jiu-jitsu and even trying to encourage them to, you know, come and try a class, especially if they're women, what advice would you give them?
I would just say to just give it a go. Like, as it says, you don't know what you know until you start doing it. And I think that's the thing. Like, I didn't realize how much jiu-jitsu was going to be such a big part of my life until I joined it. Like, I thought I was going to this NoGi class for, you know, a bit of crack, and, you know, I'd fade away after the new year, new me thing. Yeah. And it just is so addictive. I always tell people it is very addictive. But I think you either love jiu-jitsu or you hate it. I think you have to be a very special person.
There's no middle ground.
No, there really isn't.
You're either fully obsessed or It's all in or all out.
I think so. You kind of know that first night, is this for me or not? Like, if you're that person that likes to be challenged, I love a challenge, obviously, by the amount I compete. Like, I love to be challenged. And that I knew this was going to challenge me from the get-go because it was so difficult.
And it's a learning process every single class.
Every single class, yeah.
You said you are a very competitive person, but you recently made the decision to step back from competition.
Yeah.
So, and you're prioritizing your mental health and just recovery in general, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So maybe you can share like what made you take that decision.
So I had that major surgery I was talking about at the end of June. So I had July and August to recover. I think I was back in the gym at the end of August, and I knew I wanted to do the Europeans again because I was a new purple belt and I just wanted to give it a go to see where I was at in terms of standard. So that was in October. So it was a quick comeback after major surgery to go to the Europeans. But actually the Europeans the year before, which was 2023, I took it really, really bad. I cried the whole way home. I normally cry anyway after, but this was a lengthy cry. So I cried the whole way back to our apartment, and I just remember thinking, is this for me? Like, I found it very difficult to cope with the losses because they had happened so much, and you know, you do get demotivated by it, and you're pushing yourself so hard because I am so competitive and such a perfectionist. I push myself, like, I want to be the best in this sport. I really, really do. I put my heart and soul into this sport. And then you realize you're not getting anything out of it. So, you know, it can be really hard. And then, so then it was a hard decision to come back after getting my purple belt to go to the Europeans again. And, you know, that mindset of not always winning and, you know, always having those losses, it does wear off. Like, you do go through the phases, especially after a competition. If you've lost, then it's, you know, it's raw, it's there. Whereas that time had passed and I was like, you know what, fuck it, give it a go. We're back here again. Have to be on it to win it. If anybody can have a good day, let's go for it. And I went out and I lost in 30 seconds. And I just remember I started crying on the mats, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it to myself. And like, I get emotional now because I just loved it so much that I wanted it to work for me, and it wasn't. And I just put so much pressure on myself. Like, even in the gym, I was getting so worked up and so anxious all the time that I was overstimulated. So when I came into the gym, I was trying to learn, and I was ending up falling out with Gareth and Rory and all the coaches that were trying to help me. And I'm like, they were like, it's okay. Like, I was just so overstimulated that I was overreacting so much and then putting so much pressure on myself, and then being so annoyed that I couldn't do something in class. So I was going home. I was leaving here and crying the whole way home, just being so annoyed at myself that I'm not able to progress, and thinking of all these years that I put into the sport, and like, I wasn't getting anything out of it. But I mean, I do feel like I'm on this trajectory for a reason. I do feel like I'm here for a reason, and this is my journey for a reason, that I'll eventually hopefully come the day that I am a big star in jiu-jitsu. And I think it was actually only recently I realised that I need help for my mental health, because I wasn't supporting myself, and it was hard then to be able to coach others and be involved in this. Like, I did take a step back from training for a wee while, a couple of weeks, to just settle my head and figure out what I needed to do for me, because I couldn't go on any longer just constantly being down and annoyed at myself because I wasn't making that progression then, because I was in that state of mind. So no matter how hard I trained, no matter how much I looked after my nutrition, the mental health side of it wasn't there. So I wasn't able to keep on top of it. So only recently, in the last 12 weeks, I went and got help and actually got medicated for anxiety and depression. And I think now, like, looking back on where I was a bad place, and I didn't realise how bad it was until I took that step back. So it's only October since I haven't competed, but it feels like a lifetime for somebody that used to compete every month, maybe twice a month. So it was a really, really hard decision to make. But I just knew in my head, like, I need to take a step back. I need to prioritize myself and my mental health. So being medicated now helps me, you know, stay on that path of it's not the end of the world whenever I come in here and don't get a move. But because I was so overstimulated and so anxious and so annoyed at myself and so pent up, like you literally can't learn. Your mind's frazzled. So now that I've been medicated and I've been able to kind of get my mood on a level playing field, really, then I'm able to focus. I'm able to give myself that leeway where I'm like, it's grand. The night's a shit night. We all have them shit nights. It's fine. Whereas previously I'd be going home and a meltdown, crying. My husband would be like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I'm so shit. But it's not the end of the world. And like, people need to understand, I didn't realize how much I needed medicated until I got medicated. And I think a lot of people are ashamed of it. And I was definitely one of those people. And only my nearest and dearest know I'm medicated. So I think it's good to be open and honest about it, because we all need support. We all need to look after our mental health, whether it's, having therapy, being medicated, seeing a sports psychologist. Like, this sport is not easy, mentally. Any sport isn't easy. If you're at that level where you really want to do well, I think you need to have a good, secure rein on your mental health.
First thing I want to say is thank you for discussing this on camera.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of courage to speak about this, especially the whole mental health side. It does take a lot of courage.
Yeah.
And it was great that you did recognize the signs that, okay, I need to take this step back.
Mm-hmm.
And how would you encourage others to actually do this as well? Obviously, you'd encourage people to not put so much stress on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So what steps are you taking now to, mitigate this from happening again in the future?
Yeah. I think, obviously, first off, as I'm medicated, it makes it a bit more easier to manage. But I think just not putting so much pressure on myself. Like, I want to have a comeback now in May at the IBJJF Masters European in Barcelona. I'm just taking my time and I'm enjoying it again. Like, I think when I went through that rut of, struggling with my mental health, I was doing jiu-jitsu because I felt like I needed to be there. I wasn't doing it because I was enjoying it or because I wanted to be there. Sometimes it was like, Lisa, you want to be the best, so you just need to go. Whereas, yes, that helps some way, but when you're in that much of a rut, it's not a great way to think. So taking the step back to realise that and give myself the opportunity to breathe and, reassess the situation and where I'm at and reflect on how far I've come. Like, it's such a big difference. Like, you think that you're not improving in the sport and, you plateau sometimes and things just kind of level out for a while. And, but you still realise how far you've come. Like, I'm still competing as much as I can, but in terms of for Barcelona, I'm just focusing on me, focusing on myself. It's one thing it's one thing that I didn't do well, was just focusing on me. When I was going to a competition, I was always going to look up the girls. What are they doing? What are they good at? They're class at this. For God's sake, I'm crap at defending that. Sure, I'm going to get caught in it. And then what did I do? Get caught in it in the competition. What you believe sometimes will happen. What you say you can do and you can't do, you're probably right. And I think one of the main things for me is just focusing on me, myself and I, and being open enough with myself to understand that even though your opponent might be fantastic at this, guess what? I'm fantastic at things too. It's up to me to implement my game and do it first and not let them have the opportunity to, put their game into play. And I think that's one of the biggest things, again, with my girls as well. I have one at the minute with that competition and she's worried about something that another girl does all the time. And I'm just like, that's okay. What are you going to do? There's no point playing into their game. It's like MMA. If you're fighting as an orthodox and you end up with a southpaw, like, some people end up switching to southpaw thinking, well, I'll go to their stance and it'll be easier. It's not. That's their game. Like, you can't play into what they're good at. You have to do what you're good at in order to upset the rhythm. And I think, I need to recognize that and help the girls recognize that as well, that we are good at things and we're really, really good at some things, and just make sure we are able to portray that in a match. And, that's part of it, obviously, knowing it. And then the competitive side of dealing with the nerves, the anxiety and the stress. And maybe if it is your first competition, that worry of just people looking at you and like a big room full of people just is sometimes difficult. So making sure that people understand the expectations as well on just what happens in a competition environment. But no, I think it's just important to make sure that you recognize what you're good at. And again, it comes back to that journaling that I do, is I'm really good at these things. So, you know, that's what I have to remember on competition day. It's not thinking, oh my God, she's got massive muscles, she's going to like rip my arm off or do this, that, and the other. And I'm like, even though she's massive muscles, I'm good at things. So I can counter or do my own thing and be offensive and, you know, work with what I have. Again, comes back to working with what you have.
And technique always beats strength.
Yeah.
And was there a reason why you picked the Master Europeans?
I'm a sucker for the big competitions, and to be honest, it's as somebody at 50 kilos, it's hard to get local competitors, especially now that I've gone to purple belt. It's really, really difficult to find people at that weight, and I really struggled even with MMA as well to get those opportunities, and that's why I ended up doing the World Championships in MMA as well in Serbia. And I think for me, like I would say maybe 60-70% of all my competitions have been out of Ireland, because there's more opportunity and more people at that size. So even for me, I do a lot of invitationals because I get that opportunity to have somebody my weight. But with the bigger IBJJF competitions, ADCC trials, there's a lot more girls. Like I think there was maybe 8 or 9 in the Europeans last year, maybe even more than that in my bracket, which is great because, you know, if you get past the first, then you get multiple rounds with the girls your weight. Whereas here, I might have a round robin with one person, or if I even get one person. So it can be hard.
So do you find you have to actually move up weight classes to do a lot of competitions?
Yeah. I've done so wrongfully as well. I do. Again, it comes back to me just wanting experience. I'm like, just say yes. Just do it. Because, like, yes, they're heavier, but I can still get the experience from it. And ultimately, it comes down to, again, looking after myself and making sure I'm protecting myself. It was actually only recently, after that match you were the judge at on ADCC, it was only after that I actually entered the absolute that day, and Gareth was like, you're not doing the absolute. And I was like, why? And he was like, because there's a girl in it who's 137 kilo. And I was like, sure, that's all right. And he was like, what are you going to do when she's on top of you? And I was like, I don't know, we'll figure that out when I get there. And he was like, I'm pulling you from it, Lisa. Like, you can't do that. Like, it's not right. I mean, yes, we all want to win. And, you know, looking back on it, I'm like, right, like, what if I did get that girl? Like, there isn't much I could do in that situation. And then there's opportunities there for me to get injured. Do you know, when I need to think about that and think about what I want to do next and is it going to impact that? So, from then I decided, like, I'm not saying yes to, you know, competitions where people are heavier than me. Even in the likes of ADCC, and most of the invitationals I taken have all been under 55 kilo day before weigh-in, and I'm still 50 kilo. Do you know, them girls sometimes are cutting down to the 55, and it still makes a big difference. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it does make a difference. So I've decided over the last year that, you know, I need to just stick within my own weight range and give myself the credit where it's due in those matches as well. Because with the bigger people, I always think, oh, if they were this size, could I have done better? If they were this, if they were that. I'm like, there's no point effing, because you can't go back and change it.
That's crazy. I know you were saying like 5 kilos or whatever, but that's nearly a whole weight class.
Yeah, it is a whole weight class.
And you've done that, as you were saying, like for nearly every competition you've had. And then it's only when you go outside of Ireland, you actually are matched up with people your size.
I think I counted last year, was it maybe only 4 or 5 competitions I actually competed at my own weight class.
Jeez. And that was probably good advice to get pulled from the absolute. Yeah. Like that, nearly 80 kilos of a difference. That's like a whole person.
I don't think I actually thought about it. Like, I don't think I, pictured it in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad I didn't do the absolute.
Yeah, no, that would have definitely been horrific. And I'm grateful you didn't do it, because I wouldn't want to be on the judges table for that one.
No, definitely not.
And with the Gi European, Masters European, do you prefer the Gi or NoGi?
Well, this is a dispute that's come up in the last couple of weeks, because I find myself loving Gi again. And as a more NoGi based gym, I get a lot of looks when I say that. But no, I am starting to enjoy Gi a wee bit more. I think it's because I'm taking the time to actually train more on it. Like, here we only train once a week in Gi. So now that I'm doing more privates and more classes of it, I just appreciate it that wee bit more. But like, NoGi will still always be the one. But I do want to improve my Gi competitions as well, because like looking back on my results and some of the competitions that I've done, any gi competitions I've done, I've never been submitted. It's always been points. Whereas all my NoGi matches, anything I've lost is from a submission. And I'm like, does the maths make sense? Does that mean I'm better at gi than I am NoGi? Probably not. But I'm like, just give it a go and see how we get on. Again, it's not necessarily a goal that I'm like, well, I'm doing this because I know I'm going to win, because that's never the case. I'm doing it because I want the challenge again. You know, it's back to that, but in a better mindset.
Yeah, perfect. And mindset is key for all this going forward.
100%. Like everybody needs to focus on it. Whether it's, like I always say, jiu-jitsu is my meditation, because when I'm in here, I'm not worried about anything else. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just focusing on not getting my arm broke, not getting some guy in mount that's way heavier than me, you know, just focusing on being here and focusing on the problems that are in front of you rather than worrying about everything else that's going on in the world.
Exactly. And it's a great stress relief because you get to strangle someone.
100%. But I do also recommend like meditation and yoga to people as well, because during my time where I was in a rut, like I noticed that my body was just stuck in fight or flight all the time. Like there was never any time of my day where I relaxed. Yeah. And it's a personal trait of mine where I don't like to relax because I don't like being in my own head. I always need to be on the go. I'm always need to be constant. But it was something that the doctor had actually brought up to me, like, what do you do to relax? And I'm like, oh, I do jiu-jitsu. She's like, what's that? And I'm like, a combat sport. And she's like, so you do that to relax? And I was like, hi. She's like, that's not very relaxing. And I was like, I guess when you put it that way, it's not. So I had to step back and find something that actually relaxes your nervous system, because we're constantly up to high do and everything I do, you know, in your work, you know, you're stressed out, you're trying to get things done, you're trying to meet deadlines. And jiu-jitsu, obviously your heart rate's up, you're exercising, especially because most of our classes are late evenings as well. Your fight or flight response really high before you go to bed, which isn't great for sleeping. So you need to be able to desensitize the nervous system before you go to bed. It's hard work and keeping up with jiu-jitsu and everything else that goes on in life. But yeah, I definitely recommend like yoga, meditating, things like that. Even sitting in a dark room without your phone and stuff before you go to bed, making sure that you're disconnecting and actually relaxing and finding time for yourself.
Yeah, it's the late night classes that kind of gets me. Like when I get home after a training session, it could be between 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then I'm having something to eat, and then you have to be up early in the morning. But then,
work.
And then 3 in the morning, you're still lying there like, oh, I'm going to be so tired in the morning.
Like our classes end about 9:30, and by the time everybody stands chatting and everything, like I normally am asleep by 10. So like I try and get home as quick as possible, get something into me and sleep for 10. Like, but you know, it's not always achievable, but that's where you have to try and work on your sleep pattern as well and make sure it's in the best way that it can be, because it's important for recovery as well.
100%.
So important.
And as you said, you're a big fan of your sleep.
I'm a big fan of my sleep.
The next question I have for you is one that I ask everyone this, whether it's on the podcast or I'm on the mats. But where do you see the future of jiu-jitsu going?
I think it's just beginning. I think it's only starting really, because you know, the community within jiu-jitsu has got so tight, even in the 5 years that I have started, or 6 years, whatever it is. You know, everybody works so closely together. Even like gears that I've competed with, like we're all still friends. Like I think people assume with a contact sport that everyone's all like, and nobody wants to speak to each other, and we fight all the time and we don't look at each other or speak to each other. It's the complete opposite. Like everybody gets along, and even people come to our gym that have competed against our guys come to learn from them, or vice versa. And I think that's so good. So I think it's only beginning in terms of the strength. You know, it's only going to go strength to strength and growing. But I do think that Ireland has a lot of great jiu-jitsu competitors, and it's great to have that inspiration to look at as well, regardless if it's male or female. You know, we're on the rise, and I think it's amazing to see the country do so well in it.
Absolutely. Especially when you look at the likes of the Europeans and Worlds and you see so many people from Ireland placing now.
100%. Yeah.
So gives you
We're
something
one of a
Yeah.
We
really are one of a kind.
Yeah.
And the next question is just a new one I'd like to throw in, but what advice would you give to someone starting their jiu-jitsu journey today?
I would say go easy on yourself, mentally and physically. Take the time to understand the sport and understand that it's not an overnight success. Is one of the biggest things that I regret, is for years and years I just assumed that I was going to learn everything and I was going to be the best straight away. And like, I've only come to learn that people who are in the sport 10, 15, 20 years are still learning. And I think that's what the beauty of the sport is, because it's evolving so much that it's constant, never-ending improvement. And I do think that if you are that kind of person that likes a challenge, it's definitely the sport for you to get into. And, you know, as I said, the camaraderie within clubs is next to none. Like, you will meet people that you would never meet anywhere else in your life, or make friends with people that you would never make friends with elsewhere. And it's just really nice to have that support system around you of people that want the same for you as you do, and being able to support and encourage other people as well. Like, there's nothing I love more than watching the guys compete. Like, or the girls, I get just as nervous for them, actually more nervous for them than I do myself competing, because I'm like, I'm so excited for them to experience this. I'm so excited for them to do well, and even if they don't do well, I'm there to support them and give them a hug or whatever. And like, I would say I'm SBG Strabane's biggest cheerleader. Like, I go to every competition, like you said. Like, if Gareth's there, I'm always close by, because I appreciate everybody supporting me, that I will take the time to make sure I'm there at a competition, that my team is supported and that I have their back, because I want that, and I can only ask from others what I would give to them. So I think that's important as a coach and a student. Even before I was a coach, I always made sure that I was at competitions to have the support there for them.
Lisa, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I've really, really enjoyed this. I've even enjoyed the chats we've had off here. And Gareth, thank you for judging us silently in the back. For anyone who doesn't know, he's sitting in the corner. Yeah. And finally, the last question I have for you today: what have you coming up in the future? Are you going to be doing jiu-jitsu? Is it MMA on the horizon? And what's the best places to reach you online?
Yeah. So obviously I want to make my comeback at the IBJJF Europeans in May in Barcelona. I've actually started running as well recently. So I've signed up for a half marathon that is 2 weeks after the Europeans in Barcelona. Then I wonder why I'm stressed and, you know, not relaxed. But anyway, yeah, I just enjoy the challenge of things. So I'm excited to come back, and hopefully with a fresher attitude and a fresher mindset, that maybe things will be different this time around, and that I've taken the time to look after myself. But yeah, you can get me on Instagram, Facebook, Lisa Houston _11 on Instagram, I think. And yeah, anytime anybody wants to come and train with the 50 kilo woman, I'm open. We do try and get the girls together as well. Try to organise a couple of women open mat as well for the smaller girls, because we're few and far between. So it's nice to get people to train with that's my own size. So if anybody wants to come and train, give me a shout.
Awesome. And if you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast and you're listening to the audio version, I'd greatly appreciate if you could leave us a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you're watching it on YouTube, please remember to like, share and subscribe. Lisa, I'll include all your information in the show notes. And once again, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much. Over and out.
Hey everyone, before we wrap today's episode, I want to take a moment to say this. If anything we spoke about today resonated with you or brought up any feelings you've experienced before, please know you're not alone. Mental health challenges can affect anyone, and it's important to reach out for support when you need it. I've included some free resources and helplines in the show notes for you to connect with if you'd like to talk to someone or seek professional help. Remember, taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical health. Whether you're a competitor or someone who just wants to train day to day, mental health can affect everyone. Thanks for listening, and take care of yourself.